What is up, Flesh and Blood players? Today we're going to be talking about Silver Age, Flesh and Blood's newest format and also kind of the newest on-ramp into the game. We're going to be talking about whether it has been successful in launching, how I think the game's launch has overall been handled, whether it's achieving what it's set out to, and overall, is Flesh and Blood doing this right? I think there's been a lot of concerns on Twitter this week in particular about whether this format is actually good or competitively viable, whether there's potential even in this format for this to be good long term. Is PT Yokohama going to be good? So we're going to be breaking all that down and kind of discussing some of the points that I think people are missing about this format. First of all, if you want to support us more or get access to more premium content or more premium Silver Age content, go check out our Metafy. We have guides on both Briar and Fi. The Fi guide in particular has been written by Thomas Bailey Galbraith and Ben Dodd, some of the best players in the game. Check out that guide below, and I hope you enjoy that one. Let's launch into this by kind of talking about the precons, because I think they're like the biggest thing that we have to talk about when it comes to this format. Obviously, the Chapter 3 announcement got dropped today, along with the announcement that we're getting a Blaze downgrade to be Silver Age legal. I think this is a massive success. Chapter 3 is like very exciting. Everyone I know is very excited about Chapter 3 and getting to play Blaze. I think overall, that's pretty good. Chapter 1 and 2 as a whole, now that we've had them for a couple of weeks and we've seen ProQuest and like people picking up the decks, massive success. I've got to say, I think overall, for trying to establish precons for a bunch of different heroes that are going to appeal to a variety of people, I think LSS did a great job. We saw Florin come top 24 of Calling London at the world premiere, playing the Fi precon. I think that says a lot about the game that they're willing to release a precon that can like top 24 and cash a Calling that had like something like 700 people or something crazy. Overall, these are like some of the best precons I think I've ever seen. I think in terms of value for money, they're pretty insane. The only nitpick I can really say with them is some of them are more competitive than others, but that's kind of going to happen regardless. Like maybe they could have been a bit more behind some of like the Icelander or Dorinthia ones, etc. Maybe they could have included some cards from Pen. Overall, I can kind of see why they didn't do that from a consumer perspective. So I think in terms of the precons and how those are affecting the format, I think those are great. The other thing we've obviously got to talk about with Silver Age is kind of the idea of the $20 ticket to the 2 million World Tour. Look, like, let's be real, no one's probably picking one of these up and like winning the PT with it, but I don't know, the fact that like they're all pretty solid fundamental basis for decks, that's exactly what you want. That is like, we could not be like, we can't really complain about that. That's pretty amazing. Like the fact that we have like precons in this game, and like we're gonna be going up to 15 precons in this game. Like if you want to get into Flesh and Blood, and like you like a particular like archetype of like D&D hero or like etc., I think these are a massive success. And I think overall, in terms of like an entry level for the game, this is exactly what LSS wanted. Because something that they've been really struggling with is onboarding, and I think these do it in maybe the most elegant way that I've seen out of an LG, out of like a card game. Obviously we got all this info and kind of, you know, in the box there's everything you need. Like I think it's great on that level. Silver Age as a format, great for getting people into the game. There's a little bit more variance than CC. That's great. I think that's fine. Like, it's fine for a format to exist that has a different skill set than CC. I know that's like a bit of a hyperbolic or strange take to kind of get from a competitive player, but like, I don't know, Jacob Clements made a very good tweet, which was essentially like people getting mad at LSS for making a format where like you get punished for making bad plays. Look, you might make less decisions throughout the game, but ultimately you do still have to make good decisions during the game. I don't know, that sure sounds like a skill-intensive format to me, like, especially if the games are shorter and, like, you have to focus more on your interactions. Like, that seems like a successful format to me, like, when one of the biggest criticisms is you have to be skill-intensive and, like, the skill decisions you make are meaningful. Like, that's pretty good. Like, that's better than some CC formats we've had. We've had CC formats where it didn't really matter what decision you made, and you were just kind of like rolling the dice. I think we might be in one of those formats right now. I think CC might be worse than Sage, but that's like a different conversation. The other main complaint that I think people have about this format is like there's a couple of balance issues. We have the week 1 data now. This is it on the screen. We now know what the format actually looks like in terms of win rate. There was a lot of clamoring about DGA, like, to start off with, and Kano. I think the data kind of shows that those 2 decks are not really the problem in this format. I think Briar is, like, a little overtuned. I think this deck is actually not that bad of an offender. Like, I don't think there's a massive amount of non-games with Briar. I think it's just very consistent. I think it's a very healthy deck to have at the top of the metagame. I think if I was gonna, like, touch this format, the only card I would hit from Briar is Burn Up Shock. I wouldn't hit Lightning Press, as some people have suggested, because hitting Burn Up Shock just reduces the range of the game, and it doesn't force your opponent into blocking patterns. Ultimately, it is just kind of a 0 for 4. And that's like, it's a 0 for 5 if it hits. It's a conditional 0 for 4 / 0 for 5. Like, that's fine. That's like a totally fine card to exist in Flesh and Blood. I just don't like how it works in like aggro mirrors, where it just kind of is a free thing. And I think it does just make the deck a little too consistent. You cut that card out of Briar, it's still a great deck. It's still very consistent, which is exactly what we're kind of seeing with this data set. But it's still like very beatable and very exploitable by a bunch of decks in the format. And honestly, the deck's probably like a little bit more fatiguable without the Flourish, Lightning Press, Burn Up Shock like loop that you kind of have at the end of the game against fatigue decks. I think the deck's a bit more exploitable, but it's still pretty consistent and probably a pretty healthy best deck. KO, on the other hand, I think this hero is a problem. I think KO probably had like a much lower representation rate during this first week of ProQuest, but probably had one of the highest conversion rates because of the fact that like Brute got some incredible equipment in Sage, which is really great, but I think the equipment that was already there was maybe too strong. I think Beaten Trackers really has to go out of this format. Beaten Trackers is not a card that should exist in Sage, where like action points are kind of restricted. Particularly the fact that like in KO it's way too consistent because every card in the deck is a 6, so you just like Bare Fangs into like Claw into Bare Fangs, and you just like turn 2 you're playing like Kano or something, you just die. Like, and then like anything other than the fatigue decks also just gets like 20'd on turn 1, and it's like this is not healthy. Like, this is not healthy. Like, when Pred Plating and the helmet and like whatever you're running in the Gauntlet slot already provides like 6 to 8 value just there, then you like have the boots that like I think Beaten Trackers have to go. I don't think that card should be existing in its current form. I think Beaten Trackers has to go, and I think the other card I would really hit from this deck, or just the Brute archetype, is Strongest Survive. Brute is already like one of the best numbers classes in Sage. I think ultimately like KO kind of proves that by, you know, the Might Generation, etc. I think if you hit Strongest Survive and just remove that disruption aspect from the class, it's probably really healthy. Like, I just don't think it adds much to the format. It just adds more non-games where like you're playing an aggro mirror against KO and he just plays a Strongest Survive and you just go, oh no, because like your deck doesn't block that well. And it just kind of makes a lot of non-games. Like, KO already has one of the best clocks in the format. It shouldn't also have access to like some of the best disruption in the format against like decks like Fi, Briar, Dromai, etc. In terms of the rest of the format, Kano could do with like a little smidge. I think Kano in its current form is very consistent. I think maybe hitting Talismanic Lens and just making like a bit more variance in the endgame where like you don't guaranteed have it as the Kano, where you're like, you get your opponents like 8 and then you just like crack Talismanic, find Red Emeritus on the top, just kind of end the game from there. I think that's probably not the healthiest play pattern to exist, but I think it's fine. I think also just hit Absorb if you want to hit something that like adds a bit more reach into the fatigue decks. I think that's like a perfectly fine hit. Kano just needs a small tune. I think he's overall good for the game, and he's overall a good hero to exist into the face of the format. And he has a lot of counters that like exist, like Fi, Enigma, Briar, and KO. These are all fine. DGA, I've heard a lot of arguments about this card. Decimator Great Axe is overall like, I think it's good because it's the only thing in the game really that's, other than the Unity Suite, that's like giving Warrior an identity in this format. Like, people are saying, oh, people won't play Warrior. It homogenizes the class. I don't think it homogenizes the class. I think it just gives the class something to do. Like, realistically, let's say you ban DGA tomorrow. People aren't gonna play Warrior differently. People are just gonna not play Warrior because currently Warrior at the common level just kind of sucks. Like, I've been cooking in Kasai in this format. I've been thinking like, oh, is there something here? Like, is there something I could do? There's nothing to do with the warrior card pool. So DGA existing is something that like means you can play warrior. I think that's a good thing that should exist. I think that's overall a good thing that should exist in the format. And DGA is also just great as like a way to counter the control decks in the format. I think overall, deck's very good. It's healthy to exist. It has counters that exist in the metagame, like Phi and the other hyper aggro decks, but it also beats up the control decks, and then also has like pretty medium matchups into a lot of the field. I think DGA, very healthy thing to exist, probably pretty good. The rest of the starter, I think this shows that there's like a lot of decks in this format that exist and have potential, but I think overall it's just like tune those 3 decks, and I think the rest of the format's pretty great. I think if you wanted to hit one more thing in the format, and you wanted to maybe like cut the homogenization a bit, hit all of the yellow 4 blocks in Guardian. I think those were probably not intended to exist in Sage, but overall I think that's fine. I think like I've dialed in a little bit too hard on the metagame and like particular decks and what I think is wrong with the format. I'd like to kind of talk about this on like a wider level. The best deck in this format had a 31% win ratio, the second best had a 25%, but overall the number of decks that are winning ProQuest is so high for like a format that realistically doesn't have that many competitive options. Like, that's a lot of decks. That's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 21 decks that are achieving wins, even with 56% of the wins going to 2 heroes. Like, I think that shows that the format has quite a lot of legs, and I think that also the fact that there is like convergent decks that like people are like working out and bringing it like to beat specific matchups. Like, people are bringing DGA to beat the Guardians. People are bringing Briar to like beat KO. People are bringing KO to like beat a bunch of aggro decks. Like, realistically, these decks are like Enigma is existing to beat the Guardians and also to like beat Kanos and DGAs. Like, that makes sense. Like, ultimately, I think that this shows that the format ultimately has so much potential as a competitive option. And I think like the armor suites that they've given everyone have really like reduced some of the variance that like exists in the 20 life format. They added 80 pieces of equipment in this set. That's insane. Like, I think 50 of them are Silver Age legal. The fact that they've like managed to reduce the variance of a 20 life format that existed in something like Blitz is crazy. Is there games you play where your like opponent opens like Burn Up Shock, Snatch, like Lightning Press going second, or like you just get KO'd? Sure. Those are always going to exist. Those have always existed in Flesh and Blood, and I think it's a bit silly that we're still pretending they don't. I mean, let's be honest. Like, are you telling me you never played like against like Viserai and Blitz, or you never played against like Azalea and CC where they just hit you with Red and Ledger 3 turns in a row and you're playing an aggro deck, so you just like auto lose? Like, those have always existed in Flesh and Blood. Those are always going to exist. It's a card game with variance. Like, get over it. Realistically, the majority of games are somewhat skill intensive, and all of the matchups are somewhat interesting. And ultimately, it gets people into the game. Like, we can't just, like, Flesh and Blood just can't exist as like a static game that never grows. Like, that's not how card games work. Realistically, this does exactly what we want it to do. We get people into the game. We have like a little bit more variance in this format. Is it as great competitively? Is there an argument that we shouldn't be playing at the PT? Of course there is, but it's achieving what it's meant to do. It gets people into the game, creates some interesting games of Flesh and Blood that we can play, creates layers upon layers of a metagame. Like, there is layers going on here. Like, I just talked about, like, Phi beats, like, Enigma and, like, Briar to a certain extent, and then as well as Dory and Kano. But it has like an abysmal KO matchup, and it's got a pretty rough matchup into like Flavo, for example. And then there's like Dromai as like this counter to like Briar and to DGA and like Kano that like exists. Like, there's layers upon layers going on in this metagame, and it's week 2 of the format, guys. They've done zero adjusting on this format other than taking Chain out. Like, realistically, this format has so much potential to be great, and so great on a competitive level. Like, deck building and deck selection is also a massive part of playing a card game, guys. Like, we can't just like override it and be like, oh, all the games are non-games. Like, realistically, the games always have choices and they always have agency, and there's always lines out of things. That's like kind of the best part of Flesh and Blood. But like, to say that like there is no skill in this metagame and it's just Blitz 2.0, I think is ultimately a mistake and a bit of a misreading of the format. Ultimately, I think this format heavily punishes misplays, is incredibly skill intensive, and has a lot of deck building intricacy. And I think it does exactly what LSS are trying to do with the format. Is there definitely some reining in? Like, I already talked about like the bans I think I would make to this format. Yes, there is definitely a few things and a few small adjustments that need to be made to this format. But we haven't even gotten to the point of community voting yet. Like, that's also going to be a really big thing. Let's wait before giving up on this format entirely and give LSS the time that they kind of need and deserve, and that they've kind of earned with like years of game balancing at this point, that we like kind of need to trust in what they're doing, to give them the space to make the proper adjustments and make this format what it will be, because it's so close to being there. Like, the fact that like we're seeing so many things going on, even with like decks this overpowered, like in terms of win rate, like 56%, like I don't want to downplay that. That's a crazy amount of win percentage for 2 decks. But like I said, I think Briar is possibly an adoption rate thing. I think most people going into the events this weekend are likely picking up Briar. KO, I think, is a balance issue. I think that is something that needs adjusted and will probably be changed. Briar, again, small hit, reduce the consistency, this deck's fine to exist. Everything else, these are all great decks to exist in a metagame. Like, let's give LSS the space to create this format and the feedback that we talked about and we've been talking about as a community, and let the format grow. I think overall, LSS have done what they wanted with this format, and we just gotta have a little bit of patience. Overall, thank you for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed me talking about this format and kind of having a little ramble and a bit of a format review. I hope it hasn't been a little bit too samey and I haven't been harping on the same points too much. But I think overall, I'm really excited about Silver Age and what it's going to do for the game. Again, please hit a like and subscribe if you want to hear us talk more. We have so much new content coming out in the next couple weeks. I'm really excited about the videos we've got coming out soon. We're going to have a lot of great interviews coming out with prominent figures in the community, and we're also going to have live vlogs coming out, as well as be talking more a bit about the competitive landscape and history of Fab. Overall, thanks for watching. I hope you guys are enjoying Sage,